What's up, y'all? My name is JR, and for those of you who don't already know, I'm a huge movie and TV nerd. If you're new here, I appreciate you taking the time to check out my channel. I hope you'll consider sticking around and joining the film community I'm trying to build here on YouTube. So, in today's video, I'm going to be giving my reaction and review for Netflix's newest feature film, Damsel. And just so we're clear, this video will contain some mild spoilers, so if you haven't gotten around to seeing this movie yet and you don't want to know anything that happens in it, you might want to exit this video right now. And with that being said, no more wasting time, let's get into it. Damsel is an American dark fantasy film directed by Juan Carlos Fresnadillo and written by Dan Mazzone. Millie Bobby Brown stars as Elodie, a young woman who accepts a marriage proposal from a royal family only to realize that she is being used to repay that royal family's ancient debts and must now escape while surviving attacks from the dragon lurking in the chasm of a nearby cave. Now, Ray Winstone, Nick Robinson, Sheree Angdashlu, I hope I said that right. If I didn't, I apologize. Angela Bassett and Robin Wright also star in supporting roles. Now, at the time of the making of this video, the movie has a 56% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and that's based on just over 100 critic reviews, with a slightly higher audience score of 65% based on over 1,000 verified ratings. It has a Metascore of 46 on Metacritic based on only 28 critic reviews with a comparable user score of 4.5, and that's based on 89 user ratings. And finally, it has a 6.2 out of 10 on IMDb, and that's based on almost 50,000 reviews. So let me first state that despite the logline, I did expect more from this story. It felt a little contained, and it even got rather claustrophobic at times. I think the fact that the entire story basically took place in the magical land of Aria, at the palace or in the mountains nearby. When I decided to cover this film, I was kind of hoping for an epic fairy tale, and in that regard, I have to say I was disappointed. Now, the writing for this film was not extraordinary in any way, shape, or form. I just have to say. And in fact, Dan Mazzone broke the cardinal rule of show don't tell more than enough times to truly aggravate me, causing me to take an entire point off of my final score for this film just for that fact alone. Also, the dialogue was a bit inconsistent. And, Mazzone clearly tried to imbue this film with modern feminist ideals, including some super duper cringy stuff at the end there. And, speaking of the end of the story, I didn't really understand why the dragon had to follow Elodie and her family back home, because she finally had the island to herself after burning down Queen Isabel's castle and killing everyone. After Elodie basically talked her out of killing her, instead of slaying her like a real action hero would have done, but, whatever. And, speaking of the dragon, I did think the dragon looked a bit small, but she was agile, so, I guess there's that. And I assume that had to be the case in order for Elodie to be able to kind of engage physically with the creature and, ultimately survive its wrath. So, maybe that's the reason why we opted for a much smaller dragon than we've seen in other stories that involve dragons. And I also thought the dragon in this story was a bit of a quitter. She was able to be talked down fairly easily. And she even took some L's in the fight against Elodie, which I thought was kind of crazy. But, I mean, the way I see it, a dragon like Drogon or Vagar or even Smaug, would have never capitulated so easily. But, I guess that's neither here nor there. Another thing that was noticeable is that there were really only two prominent men in this mini cast of 8 people. And I wasn't surprised at all that both of them were absolutely horrible people. Because why would there be a man in a girl boss movie that is morally good? That just seems to get in the way of the message that all men are either useless or bad, and women essentially have to either endure them or overcome them in somehow in order to become who they truly want to be. I think Mazzone could have easily had Lord Bayford marry his daughter to the prince, having had no knowledge of what would happen to her after, and then come and rescue her once he figured out what was actually going on. But nope. Instead, he was a complete and utter sellout, who essentially just sold his daughter off to be sacrificed to a dragon by a royal family, in exchange for money. And speaking of Lord Bayford, casting here was just okay. Though the cast, again, was incredibly small, even for a Netflix mockbuster movie. Millie Bobby Brown was fine enough choice for the film's lead, though she tends to over-emote and over-deliver her lines like a lot of child actors do, well into their adult roles. Now, Robin Wright worked fine as the boss babe queen with the mute for a husband. I did wonder why Lady Bayford needed to be black, but I do like Angela Bassett. But it just stuck out to me like, why? And of course, I guess that's just DEI at work again. But, I digress. Now, overall, I give this film a 55% or 5.5 if you're thinking IMDb score. The film was just a bit too on the nose for me. And I want to be clear, I don't have an issue with a feminist film. I don't even have an issue with a film that, where men do bad things to women. I just think that if you add some nuance, it makes just for a much better story. But when you go so far as to make every man bad and every woman basically either good or strong or something like that, you kind of just go, you can't even focus on the story and just be like, okay, it was a good story. You're sitting there going, oh, I feel like I'm being preached to. There were lots of ways this story could have been told, the exact same story with a much less preachy attitude about it. The CGI was also a bit suspect, but I suspect that's because Netflix was trying to make the film look like a blockbuster while keeping the budget as modest as they possibly could. This movie was absolutely, purely speaking, a revenge tale, turning your run-of-the-mill fairy tale tropes on their heads. And though I can understand the attempt at a fresh take on the idea of the proverbial damsel in distress, if you ask me, this film absolutely presented this damsel as one that needed saving after all. But what do you guys think? Have you seen Damsel on Netflix yet? If you have, did you like it? Let me know in the comments. And for those of you who might be new to the channel, be sure to like and share this video. If you really like the content, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you'll be notified whenever I drop a new video. Also, be sure to go and check out themadScreenwriter.com for more television and film reviews and info on my upcoming film projects. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I got screenplays to write. I'll catch y'all in the next video.